Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Breaking Brews Podcast, a podcast focused on the business side of beer and what's driving today's thriving craft beer industry. Whether you're one of the thousands of people making craft beer what it is today, or just love great beer and want to know more about it, this show is here to cover everything from sales, marketing, branding, culture, and much, much more. The Breaking Brews Podcast delivers real-life scenarios and experiences from industry professionals that will help your beer knowledge evolve. To tap into more great beer content, visit breakingbrews.com today. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's get this session started. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is time once again to gather around the mic and get ready for another installment of the Breaking Brews Podcast. I am your host, Jason Cercone. You are strapped in for Session 7 of the show. If you haven't done so already, jump over to iTunes, drop a rating and review. It helps the show find more listeners and find more thirsty beer enthusiasts and beer professionals just like you looking for a good podcast to fill their ears every Wednesday. You can keep up to date on everything with the show from show notes, quotes, you name it, on breakingbrews.com/podcast. All right, Session 7 is upon us, and today I am going one-on-one with Nick Bogacz, the owner of Caliente Pizza and Draft House. And we are going to rap about how Nick has built his brand pretty much from the ground up. Back in 2012, Nick took over Caliente Pizza and Bar, located in Bloomfield. He rebranded it as Caliente Pizza and Draft House. And from that point on, he was off to the races. Now, 5 successful locations, a handful of World Pizza Championships. They've done a phenomenal job pairing craft beer with really kick-ass pizza, as well as wings and calzones and hoagie salad shit. I've never had anything bad. Plenty of reasons to visit. They really put a strong emphasis on craft beer right from the start. Nick saw the movement as it was starting to explode here in Pittsburgh, as well as across the country. And he realized that this was going to be a great time to incorporate it into his business practices. And pairing craft beer with gourmet pizza, it's a tremendous marriage. And Nick saw the similarities between what he was looking to do with his brand and what craft breweries were doing with their beers. And lo and behold, it was the perfect move. And it's worked out very well for him. As I said, Caliente in less than 7 years has expanded to 5 successful locations throughout the Pittsburgh region. As we get ready to embark upon this episode, just recently the Caliente crew traveled to Vegas for the International Pizza Expo and the World Pizza Games, where they have captured world championships in the past. This year, a complete success once again. They had 6 top 10 finishes, and they had 1 third-place finish for all of the different games that they participated in. So I know I learned from the crew themselves that these guys worked for about 8 or 9 months on their recipes and fine-tuned and tweaked and got it to where they wanted to be before they presented these masterpieces in Vegas. So a lot of work and a lot of preparation goes into what these guys do on a daily basis. And today we're going to hear a lot from Nick. I learned a lot on this show. I've been friends with Nick for a little over 5 years now, and I never realized that before he took over the Caliente brand, at one point in time, he was working 5 jobs at a time, about 80 to 90 hours a week, just making things roll, and finally decided that it was the right time for him to jump in and start his own business. The man's very passionate about pizza, and I think equally as important, he's very passionate about success. And you're going to hear about how he operates his businesses. And again, and the subject matter that we really tap into is building your brand from the ground up. Obviously, we can't cover everything that it takes to do that, but you're going to hear a success story today that's going to provide some motivation and some tips on what you can do to get the ball rolling. And hopefully you walk away from this episode feeling like you're ready to run through a wall and do some good shit. Before we get to the episode, let's talk about where you can find Caliente online. If you want to find them on Facebook, look for @Caliente Pizza and Draft House, all spelled out. On Twitter, they are @CalientePDraftH. on Instagram at Caliente_pizza. And you can check out their website, which has tap lists, their full menu, you name it, pizzadrafthouse.com. One last announcement. As I stated before, today is the end of our giveaway contest for release week. One lucky listener is going to be walking away with a $100 Visa gift card. I have drawn that name, and the winner is, you're going to find out at the end of the show. Hang out after my session with Nick Bogacz, the owner of Caliente Pizza and Draft House, and you will find out who is the lucky winner of the $100 Visa gift card beer money giveaway. All right, boys and girls, it is time for me to step aside. I am your host, Jason Cercone, and it is time for you to dive into Session 7 of the Breaking Brews Podcast. So, like a Friday night?
Yeah, it's been busy as crazy lunch busy.
It was packed out there. Good pies this morning, though.
Lots of pies. We had our general managers here for the press trying out all our different Vegas pizzas, sneak preview of what we got going on next week. But it's just been, we opened last Friday, and this has been the best reception we've gotten from just about any community. We had the mayor of Monroeville here last Friday, a ribbon cutting, and they're super excited we're here. We brought a building that really hasn't had much life in the last 20 years back to life here. And it's just absolutely everything that we can take. All our great people from other stores are coming to help us to keep everything flowing.
Store number 5 too. So you guys have been crushing it.
Absolutely. We're just happy to give back to the community that supports us, and happy to spread craft beer and pizza throughout Western PA.
So you guys here in Pittsburgh, whether you live here or whether you're traveling here, and you want to find Caliente Pizza, you can find these guys in Bloomfield, Mount Lebanon, Aspinwall, Hampton Township, and now Monroeville, which, as we sit to record today, has been open for 1 full week. Looks like it's been open for 1 full year based on the way the word is spread.
Yeah, it feels like we've been open for a whole year.
So you've been at this, though, for 22 years as a pizza empire ruler, starting from the ground up, and look where you are today.
Yeah, started as a delivery driver and worked my way up through management, lots of different corporate pizza shops, and then got my chance probably about 6.5 years ago. The small little window of a chance to open up Caliente, and took the ball and ran with it.
So you said, obviously, learning from the ground up gave you a lot of experience. When did you know that it was time to get out of the corporate pizza world and start your own business?
I think the inkling came early on in my career that that's what I wanted to do. I think, I would always call these big corporate guys and say, hey, I'm your best general manager here in the Pittsburgh area. My sales are up all these numbers and profits are this high. I want to be a franchisee. And then their next question would be, okay, do you have $500,000 in net worth? And I would be like, well, I have, no. I have 2 kids at home that are, 8 and 6, and I'm, 27 years old or something like that. So, no, I didn't have $500,000 in net worth. So I think, I never really was part of the independent pizza industry, and that was the part that got me the most surprised of what has happened. Is I love the independent industry now that I'm in it. And, when I got that chance to open my own, there was that nervousness and not being part of a franchise and wondering, how do you build a brand from the ground up? And I saw a lot of what these guys have done to build their brand and how important the brand is, and recognizing that branding and marketing are 2 different things. And I think that's really what has helped me. But I think really, I was working full-time at the post office, 45 hours a week for 4 years, delivering mail. At one point, while I was doing that for 2 years, I had 5 jobs. Then I went ahead and did
5 jobs.
Yeah. So
shit.
Yeah, basically what happened was when I was delivering pizzas. This is going back to 2009. I was delivering pizzas for an independent shop, first one I ever delivered at. He had 2 stores. I delivered at both of them. I also was delivering for the corporate chain that I was delivering at. And so I'm delivering for those 3 shops full-time, made enough money to buy my first house. There was big surprise from family members and everything else to say, oh, you just deliver pizzas. And, meanwhile, I was working 6-7 days a week, and I was making enough money to buy a nice-sized house. And then from there, I started saying, well, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And, I thought, well, what about being a mailman? And as soon as I took the test and passed, everyone's like, wow, that's such a great job. You're a mailman. And in actuality, that's where dreams go to die. People go to work there, and they're like, you know what, I'm for the next 30 years I'm going to do this, and then at the end retire with a pension, and like you just give up on your life. So
outside of Cliff Clavin on Cheers, it's never been. I've never talked to a mailman that was excited about.
No.
But, I mean, you do it; it's a job, but it's not something you aspire to. Like a kid wants to be a fireman or an astronaut.
right, and the
Mailman, not so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, like, with that job in particular, it's physical and mental. Most people think all you do is drive around and deliver the mail all day. I drove a truck. Really, you sort all the mail for like 6 hours, and then you go drive it for 3 hours. So it just sucked.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm delivering mail. I'm delivering to 3 different pizza shops. And then the guy at the pizza shop recognized that I was, I guess you would call an honest individual, hard worker. And he was like, hey, I work at the Civic Arena at night. Would you want to count money in the count room at the Civic Arena, which was probably a really cool job. And, from counting money.
Sounds neat.
Yeah, it was neat. It was. They basically go in between all the periods of the hockey games while all the fans are sitting in the seats, and they collect all the money. And then there's a room of like 6 people that literally count thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars and then deposit it. And you got to match it to the penny. So there I am, post office, counting money, 3 delivery jobs, 5 jobs a week, or 5 jobs, whatever you want to call it, 80, 90 hours a week for at least 2 years. And then finally, Papa John's came to me and said, hey, we want you to run the store. We know about your history running stores for the last, 10 to 12 years. And I said, they said the guy who's running the store we're firing, would you want to take his job? And I said, no, it's like a very good friend of mine who actually helped me in the business. I won't take his job. And then about 9 months later, the guy they replaced him with, they went ahead and got rid of him. And they said, hey, would you want to take his job? And I said, you know what? I had no ties to him. This would be a position for me to go from 5 jobs to 2 jobs. So that's what I did. And then delivering the mail and running the store down there as general manager. And then eventually, like I said, I'm just going in the post office all these times and saying, I'm not like, that's it. If I'm going to do this forever. I had 2 realizations. One was, I don't know why it's pizza, but that's what I'm good at. And the other one is that if I'm going to do pizza forever, that I need to do it for myself.
And as hard as you were working, it just seems natural that you would take that step towards opening your own business. Because if you're going to put in those kind of hours, why not do it for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, looking back, 5 jobs, it really helped me juggle everything. Every time we open a new store, everything's hectic and everything, but I'm really good at getting it back to normal. And I think that's even right now, we're 1 week in, it's very, very hectic. But at the same time, I am able to juggle all the different stores and make sure everything's still flowing and everything's created the right way. It just all takes a little bit of time. But I think a lot of everything that I went through is a lot of training for what's going on now. And I think a lot of times people look at success and they think, wow, this just happened overnight. Mine's been nothing but a 22-year journey for sure.
Yeah. No, I think anybody that's successful, there's a story and there's a lot of hours behind it. I think that's one of the most important things, and I can attest to that too. I'm not as seasoned as you in the entrepreneurial side, or even in the work side, because you got a couple of years on me. But wait, do you have a couple of years on me?
I may not have a couple.
I don't know.
Years.
You got more. I don't know. We got the same gray hair thing going though. I always forget.
I got a couple of years.
Okay,
not many. Though.
Fair enough. Well, let's talk about you taking over the Caliente brand. So that took place, I believe, 2012 was when the process started. Tell us about how that all came to be and what the original plans were from the start.
Sure. So I think the backstory is, there I am working those 2 jobs that I just told you about, and I said, that's it. I had enough. So I started going to pizza shops in Oakland because I figured, I want to run a busy store, or I want to own a busy store, and I want to deliver to University of Pitt and CMU. So I walked into pizza shops and I say, hey, sell me your shop. And the guy would say, get the hell out of here. The 5th guy that I went into...
That's guerrilla marketing at its core,
I guess,
man.
Right? It's just desperation at that point. And the 5th guy that I went into said, you know what? My buddy has a store for sale in Bloomfield. And I said, sweet. I walked into Bloomfield and I said, oh, shit, it's a bar. And I walked in the back, full pizza kitchen, everything I needed. We sat down and all the numbers lined up. And then for the next 6 months, I kept saying, all I wanted was a pizza shop. And, that's the truth of it. I think somewhere in between there is when I realized that what we do as independent pizza operators is, we use the best cheeses. We cut all our meats every day. We make our dough every day. I didn't want to be the one of those guys that says, I have the best pizza. That wasn't how I do it, and let the pizza speak for itself. But what I found in between there, craft breweries were really booming nationwide and specifically in Pittsburgh at that time. And what I realized is these guys are doing the same thing. They love to make sure they're using the best ingredients, and they're putting most of these guys started in their garages or on weekends or with some buddies. So like they're putting their pride and all their heart into it. And I said, you know what? I'm doing the same thing with my pizzas. I'm going to put craft beer and pizza together on the next level and really go ahead and put it out there and see what happens. So that was a lot of what happened, I guess.
That was pretty early in the whole process when you got started, or when you took over the brand that you started incorporating craft beer?
It was. I saw it like right away. It wasn't like, it was one of those things that when you're in Bloomfield or in Lawrenceville or one of those hot areas, or Southside maybe back at that time, the reps, are in and out of there, and they're trying to sell you all these different brands. And, somebody that maybe like myself, who definitely removed from the beer scene for a long time, was used to, Heineken's, Foster's, Corona, Labatt, and that was it. And then to see all these different brands and start to realize that there was more to it, then I said, well, if I'm going to do anything, so what I started to do was research at that time the best beer bars in Pittsburgh. D's, Smokin' Joe's, Huff's, Mad Max's, really starting to look at them and be like, I want to be in the same breath as these guys. And that's where my focus turned. And then, back in the day, 2013, Craft Beer Week was actually a great event. Guys, and, Fathead Saloon, they were all on the back of the Craft Beer Week shirts, and but we sell craft beer, and I want to be up there with these guys, so I'm going to go ahead and promote myself and brand myself as a beer bar. So I time to be a bronze sponsor for the first year, and before you know it, we were on the back of the shirts, and next thing you know, it was the busiest week we ever had at that point. We had opened in September, and I was like, yeah, this craft beer thing, and had on there at that time 10,000 followers on their Facebook, and I had 700. That's when I realized, like, if I could build our Facebook page, that also is going to build the brand as well. So that was kind of like a huge part in that.
So I'm thinking that with what you guys did, obviously you're bringing a good product to the market with your pizza, with all the experience you were bringing to the table. Combine that with craft beer, it just made for the perfect marriage. So your pizza, the recipes that you have created, was there a lot of influences from your past experience, or did you come up with a fresh new product when you rolled out the Caliente brand?
Sure, so that's a great question, too. And actually right now on Amazon is The Pizza Equation.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Yeah,
I'll let you plug your book.
Yeah, I got to plug my book. So
At
my new
least
book's
once.
out there, and it has a whole chapter on how we picked our recipes.
We even plugged it in the earliest episodes of the Breaking Brews podcast. So I'm taking care of you, brother.
All right, cool.
I got your back.
I know you do. So anyway, to get into the recipes, I'm one of those guys who just knew what a good pizza tastes like. I knew it. If I eat a pizza, it doesn't matter, even to this day. If I eat one and it doesn't matter where I am in the country or out of the country. It doesn't matter if it's a gas station or a frozen pizza. It's what I can eat it, and man, it just tastes good. So what we did in the beginning was, I worked for all these corporate chains, and their sauce showed up in bags, and their vegetables showed up in bags, and their cheese showed up frozen. Their dough sometimes showed up frozen. So I didn't really have a recipe. Like, people were like, oh, this was, passed on for generations, grandma's recipe or something. Like, I wasn't one of those guys. I just knew it tasted good. So I did the next best thing. I had all my family down, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters. They were all just really proud of me. So we were really excited about what was going on, that they were excited about us. And we just went ahead, had all the family down, and next thing you know, so it started with the dough. The first day we went ahead and made a batch of dough for everybody, and everybody kind of agreed, family and friends, that it was okay. So, on top of painting and everything else we're doing, the next day they came down and we did another batch of dough, and they tried it out, and they said, this dough's pretty good. Enough for me. I really believe that what I wanted someone to do with our pizza is kind of what songwriters and singers are able to do. If you hear an Elton John song, it's Elton John. Or if you hear, the Boss singing, it's the Boss. You hear that voice, right away. So I wanted to be, if you bite our pizza, it's a Caliente pizza. So I took that second dough. I checked with our future regional chef, a good friend of mine. I called him, said, hey, can I add this to the dough? And he told me how many ounces, and went ahead and added it. And then at that point, the third batch, everybody tried it and like, wow, this dough's amazing, whatever you're doing. So same thing with the sauce. We did a couple different sauces. And first couple ones were okay. The third one, they're like, wow, this is great. Next one, we did a bunch of different cheeses. We landed on one that we thought went well with the sauce and the dough. And I think even to this day, a lot of different people will say how great our pizza is, and they'll say, one person will say it was the dough, the next person will say it was the cheese, and if you're a sauce guy, they'll say, boy, I love the sauce. Mm-hmm. So I think we hit it on all parts there. Then, like I said, I never said that our pizza was the best. I let everything kind of fall into line. And then WPXI did a contest where we won third place, voted on, and the two above me were guys that have been in town for 50 years. So I took that and spun it as, best new pizza by WPXI. And from that point, it reached a guy out in Punxsutawney who happened to write for Pizza Today. He showed up at my restaurant, showed up at Caliente, and told me the whole story about Las Vegas and how this all works out there. And that's how I really got introduced to the independent pizza part of it. And then that's where he was good friends with Tony Geminani, who was writing his book at his time, and we ended up having Tony at the restaurant. And that was just you were there.
I was there for that.
Yeah, you were. And then,
I had to pick his brain about Bar Rescue. That was a good time.
Yeah, right. So at that point, that's where I really met, the independent scene. And I think over the next 4 years, that's where, eventually Tony named me to his World Pizza team after we won 3 championships. And I think it just was all a process of really, and for me, it was nice winning all the championships too, because I got some recognition finally for being a pizza guy, where I had, definitely at that point in Caliente, 13, 14, 15, had really put beer first, because I knew that's what would drive everything.
And I think that's something I've noticed, because I feel like I've been with you for this journey since it started pretty much, because you hadn't been open very long when I first ventured in, and it was based off the recommendations of friends, and I was impressed right from the start. And I know when I wrote my first feature, that's what made you say, hey, come on down, I'd like to meet, and we've been friends ever since. What I've noticed as things have evolved and grown for your business is that you've made that shift to where you still have good beer on tap, but the pizza is more in the spotlight now. Am I incorrect in making that assumption? Or because again, it feels like there's some equality. You want to have both, but pizza, you guys have really been kicking some ass with that, winning awards on international levels. It seems like that's going to be really what drives the brand going forward.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Like, we never want to forget the beer, because that's what got us there in the first place. I do think the beer market in Pittsburgh has shifted dramatically over the last few years.
Agreed.
Especially when opening up, and there's maybe 6, 7 breweries, and now there's too many to count. I think if I guess 40, it'd probably be low.
And I think we're if you talk about the whole region, I believe we're over 50 at this point, and then there's still more planning, so that number's still going up.
Yeah, so it's made it really different, because at the end of the day, there's still only so many beer drinkers, so it's been a lot different. So I think the opportunity for us was there to promote the pizza, but also winning the awards and everything, I think kind of has put us to where we could promote our pizza. And it's always what's going to put the most people to the store, and there's definitely a person out there that wants to go for great pizza and great beer together. One thing I think that I saw too was, if you go back to maybe 14, 15, there was the BRGRs, Burgatories, Burgers, Stacked. I mean, I'm probably missing about 4 more.
Yeah.
But, they were so big into putting craft beer and burgers together, and I said, hey, wait a second. I'm already doing craft beer and pizza. I want to make sure that nobody's going to come in and say they have more gourmet pizzas than we do with craft beer. And that's where I brought in Eric Von Hansen, like I had mentioned before, a good friend of mine. And I said, look, I want to make sure that we never have anybody can come in and have more crafty pizzas than us. And that's, that was a big part of making sure we stay above that trend. And that's when the championships started happening and everything too.
Yeah. Well, let's segue into that, because as we sit and record this podcast, you're about a week away from making your annual trip out to Las Vegas. This will be
our 4th year competing.
Okay.
This will be my...
Give us some background about the International Pizza Expo. Clearly, you guys have been rock stars out there for the past few years, so give us an idea of what that experience is like. Is it over the course of a weekend? I know there's a lot that goes on, so give us some background about what you guys do while you're out in Vegas, and I'm assuming it's not a lot of gambling.
No, it's not as much as you would think. Like it's still like, I don't know, when the guys that we take all our general managers first and foremost, so there's 9 of us going out this year. There's Bloomfield has 2 co-general managers, my regional chef, myself, and we're taking our marketing department out there as well to kind of vlog everything. So we fly out Sunday at 6 a.m. You get there about noon. give everybody kind of a free day. Then 7 o'clock at night, we go to Tony Geminati's Pizza Rock, which is, if you're ever in Vegas, I promise you, is the best pizza you ever eat in your life. It is that good.
Where's it at in Vegas?
Downtown by Fremont Street.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. Like, it should be on your to-do list if you're in Vegas. Then after he has the pre-party, everybody probably early in January to reserve our table for our guys. So we go every year. Then the next morning, it's the only night they can really get it in. It'll be Sunday night, they get it in. And then Monday, everything starts about noon. So it runs noon to 6. It's really for like anybody new to the industry or first-time Pizza Expo goers. They have probably 5 hours worth of seminars. So we'll go take all our guys to those. And then Monday night, we usually do a dinner, kind of relax a little bit. There'll be some of our vendors will have us to their different mixers and stuff like that. So we have a nice night. Then Tuesday starts the competitions. We'll start all the different competitions, and then the acrobatics and the largest stretch, and then some of our pan pizza division goes on Tuesday, I believe. And then there's seminars all day long. So it's a lot of great learning. Better tips about your dough. That's where I'll be speaking about the beer. Building a better beer list is my topic out there. It's kind of funny too, put myself out there as a pizza guy, but also more than happy to teach the pizza world about the beer business too. They've recognized that how high of a level that we've done that, and they see the growth too that we've had. So I think from there, Wednesday, Tuesday night we always go out to a nice show. We'll do a Vegas show with our guys. So I think that's kind of nice team building. And then Wednesday, same thing, 8 a.m. till 8 at night is all pizza stuff, and it's seminars and lots of different mixers. But it's 10 it's like 10 football fields full of pizza stuff. That's incredible. It's awesome. Like, it's everything from a vending machine that puts out pizza to guys from Japan throwing pizzas in the air. What's really cool is, I'm sure everybody on social media by this time has seen those Japanese pizza thrower guys that do it to the weird music.
Yeah,
I saw them,
ninjas.
Yeah, I've seen them 5 years ago. There's no doubt that the Koreans are better than the Japanese.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Wow.
And I don't know how true it is, but everyone's they don't even really make pizzas. They just practice in a dojo.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a guy who's probably 50, and then they never bring the same Koreans. They're always different. They're always young, 18, 19, 20, men and women, and they just kick everyone's ass and throw in the pizzas.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Calling all Pittsburgh barley wine fans. One of the most badass events of the year is just around the corner. Hell with the Lid Off 5th March 23rd at Kelly's Bar and Lounge in East Liberty. This thing's barley wine is the only event of its kind in the United States. We're talking aged barley wines dating back to the early 2000s and new barley wines from breweries all over the country pouring side by side. If barley wine is your jam, you cannot miss Hell with the Lid Off 15 on Saturday, March 23rd. A limited amount of tickets are still available. Visit Kelly's Bar and Lounge's Facebook page to find the show clicks link and grab your seat before it's too late. Well, to put a beer spin on this, I want to talk about the seminar that you're going to be leading out in Vegas. But before we go down that path, let me ask you, you mentioned how some people have wanted to hear what you have to say about building a tap program. Do you feel like you've broke some ground in the pizza industry with incorporating craft beer into your practices?
I think we have, and people across the country actually recognize it when we go to the seminars, because if you think about beer before, you can think about Pub and Pizza out in Mount Lebanon, and it's that's where we are now in that spot, and people would always think of that spot as pitchers of beer and pizza. And what we have done is, marriage great pizza with great craft beer and kind of put that together. And what's interesting when we go to the conventions is people do, I think at first they kind of recognize that and they want to know how we were doing things, but now that we've been so successful, they want to know a lot more. And they want to know how they can do it. They don't want to just know how we did it. They want to know how they can do it at their locations. And I think you'll appreciate where I always start. I always start local.
Yeah.
If you really think about, sure, there was a lot of us bootlegging the, quote unquote bootlegging the gray market beer was a lot of what we did, sure. But if you really think about what we did, before that, even we were going down to Church Brew Works, made a great relationship with Matt Moniger, who's the head brewer at the time there. Matt would show up on Friday nights with a firkin that wasn't anywhere else but ours, and he would talk to all our customers about it. And that's really where it started, and eventually I figured out that, we could get better beer, or not even better, but just different beer to give people more selection by grabbing beer, legally from the other side of the state and figure out how to do that. And I think that was a lot of it. But really, in the beginning, the teachable part is partner with those brewers. Make a relationship. They're more than happy to come in and teach your customers about it. And it doesn't matter if you're in Idaho or Illinois or Florida. Like, there's local breweries everywhere. If you make those relationships and start with a local tap list and then work your way into forming relationships with the sales reps of bigger breweries and then kind of blend those together, that can give you a really good start at putting together a nice tap list.
So is this going to be what the course is about, like what you just said? Because I feel I can't even ask my next question if that's it.
Well, that's the start. That's
okay.
Because what I try to do, anytime you go to a seminar anywhere, it doesn't matter what you're trying to learn, I think there's a point where you sit there, whether you paid for it or it's free, and you start to think, can I do this? Like, is this guy just lucky and he did it at his store or his business or in his life, and I'll never be able to duplicate that because that was his story.
Yeah.
And what I try to do is take that out and be like, look, it doesn't matter where you are. Like, you can 100% duplicate what we've done. It starts with building relationships with the local brewers.
Okay. So your seminar that you're leading, how long is it? Is it offered more than once throughout the weekend, or is it just like a one-time thing where people have to show up and be there that time?
Yeah, so it's from it's on Tuesday. It's from 2:30 to 3:30.
Yeah, and by the time you're hearing this podcast, it will have already happened. So
yeah.
You probably did great.
Yeah, I'm sure I did. So I actually spoke one similar at the Midwest American Restaurant Show.
Okay.
It was actually nice to kind of put that out, and really, I'm glad that I did that one now because it's been really hard getting the time with the new store to kind of fine-tune the talk for Vegas, but I probably have 90% of it's going to be similar to what was in Ohio.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, this is what I'll be talking about, is just for that hour, probably 45 minutes of it is, 30 different slides, showing them all, hey, the different things. I've got one where it's, it was funny, my daughter's a little bit better. She's 18. She's better putting PowerPoints together than I am. She's actually like, why don't you just use Google Docs, like Google Slides?
Yeah.
Why would you ever use PowerPoint? Yeah. But anyway, so I put one in that's like, picture of a Coors Light girl with a pitcher of beer. And my daughter's like, what the hell's this? And I was like, no, this is like to tell people, like, this is how you think of beer and pizza. But no, you don't need the Coors Light girls at your store every weekend to try and promote beer. Like, you're better having a guy with a big beer that weekend.
Amen. So we've talked a little bit about the fact that where we're sitting now is your fifth location. You've grown from one store to five in a 6-year span. What were some of the challenges you faced as you made the leap to open your second location?
Honestly, the second location was easy because it was 5 minutes from my house, and I could go there before work all day, go down to Bloomfield, still put time in there. When I opened up Bloomfield, I had a guy that came with me that I was very familiar with that helped me at the place I was at before. I ended up picking up another great manager along the way. Those guys, I left one of them down there to run Bloomfield, who was running everything how I exactly trained him. When I got to Hampton, it was no problem because the guy who was with me for a while now was running that store, and he was trained exactly by me every moment, so it was no problem. It was when we opened the third store, all the way in Mount Lebanon. And if you're from the North Hills, you don't go to the South Hills.
Oh, I know. I hear this
blah, blah,
all the time.
So that was it. That was when we got to the third store. We're like, wow, how do we keep the consistency, and how do we do all this stuff? So what we decided to do was that's when we got real big into charts and handbooks and all the stuff that the big chains, I guess, would do, and corporations, and just, I knew all that, systems. For better lack of terms, that's what they are. And I knew all that from my corporate days. So I was able to invent over the next year, 2 years, and even to today, still making systems to make everything easier. This is the way we open the store. This is the way we clean the bathroom. This is the way we clean the mirrors. This is the way, our employees are supposed to look. This is the way everything happens.
Well, let's go backwards for a second. So you said store 2 was easier, store 3 was a little more difficult. But when in the grand scheme of things, did you decide that it was time to make that jump towards a second, third, fourth, and now fifth location? Like when did you realize the success of store number one could lead to more Calientes across the Pittsburgh region?
Yeah, so I think the other question I get a lot to answer that question would be, how do we pick locations? And it kind of falls into the same thing, like how do we know we were ready to go do another store? They both are the same answer, when it's a good deal. I think a lot of times where businesses get into trouble is when they get in over their head on rent, when they get in over their head on expenses, and they can't figure out how to pay stuff, and then next thing you know, they're out of business. I think where we went right is the second store was the right deal. A lot of guys get into trouble when they spend too much money on the new look, on going into business. You know, they think that they need this spot that's going to be, they want to be in the same place that Applebee's would be, or they want a spot that where Permanis is going to be on the corner of, you know, the best location in Homestead in the waterfront or something, or, you know, they're redoing Station Square right now, so it might be like, oh, I want to be, you know, right in Station Square. Like, so we always look for a good deal. That's it. I didn't say we want to go to Monroeville or we want to go to Aspinwall or we want to go to Hampton. We knew financially we were ready to do that, and then we also knew that operationally we had the people to do it. And that's the whole thing. Like, a lot of people point to our success, and I think a lot of what another side that's in the book too is talking about the leadership. And, you know, honestly, like, a lot of what happened was when I was younger, there was a youth foundation that was right down the hill from me, and I would always go and volunteer there and be the coach of the floor hockey teams. I was, you know, my younger brothers, I was their floor hockey coach, and I was the one having extra practices on Friday nights and trying to win the championships. And I just love sports, and I always was the coach because I wasn't good enough to be the player. And I took a lot into that, and I learned at a young age. And that's really what has happened here too, is, you know, being able to lead people and paint the vision of what Caliente is for the people. You know, our rally cry has been one team, one dream. And really what that means is it doesn't matter where you start in Caliente. You know, if you want your own Caliente, if you're here and work hard enough, I'll help you do that. Yeah. You know, if you want to be, you know, you start as a server and you want to be a bar manager, like, we'll help you get there. Yeah. You know, it's whatever your dream is inside Caliente, we'll help you get there.
Beautiful. So you mentioned the book. I know we've talked about different parts of it. So available on Amazon right now, The Pizza Equation by Nick Bogacz, the first book that you have published and you self-published. Tell us about it. Give us a book report.
Sure. So I'd say a book report is, you know, it's something that took me about 1.5 years to write, a little bit at a time. Next thing I know, I felt like I had something. Contacted an editor who I knew through a friend of a friend, and they agreed that, yes, I had something there. They gave me about 40 questions to write, to answer about things that I'd written. I answered the 40 questions over the next few weeks, a little bit at a time. Basically what it is, you know, the beginning talks a little bit about the pizza industry and gives a history of pizza in general. Then it gets into my story about what it took and learning everything from all these different owners and operators over the years, and my struggles of, you know, 5 jobs at one time, like I had mentioned, and just really working. And then it starts to tell about how is Caliente, how I took everything that I learned, put it into a quote-unquote pizza equation, and have developed it into what you see Caliente is today. And I really think it's a great book for, of course, anybody starting in the pizza industry or anyone who's successful already in the pizza industry, or really for anybody who's entrepreneurial and just wants to read a feel-good story. I think it's in there. There are tips and tricks of stuff that we do to market and kind of build the brand and build the marketing. But I think overall, you know, it's a nice, fun read for somebody who likes to read a good story.
Well, clearly what you've put together is working. Again, building 5 successful locations in 6 years is no easy feat. And you guys are doing a tremendous job of that. So as we get ready to wrap up here, let me ask you a pretty open-ended question. What's been the most rewarding part of building the Caliente brand?
I think, honestly, it's kind of like maybe a cheesy answer, but it's really...
I see what you did there.
Yeah, right. It really is the people that work for us. You know, the relationships we've made, even the relationship like we have made over the years, like meeting people that you wouldn't have met if you didn't own Caliente. You know, like that's the thing. Like meeting the beer reps and the sales reps, and the employees, and the customers. Just meeting all these people that I would have never known. Like it's not monetary. You know, there's stuff that comes with success, but it's the relationships that we've made, my wife and I, over these last 6 years. I mean, we've met a really a lot of great relationships. I often think of our very first customer in Bloomfield. His name's Chuck. Chuck came in and wanted Bud Light or Budweiser, pardon me, from the beginning, and we had like one bottle of Bud when we took over, and every day I had to go buy, every 2 days I had to buy a case of Bud because that's how much Chuck drank. And I don't get to see Chuck enough. Every once in a while I get to see him, but when I see him, it's like he's our first customer, and I always I call him the ghost of Caliente. So anytime I see Chuck, I'm like the ghost of Caliente. So it's like just exciting, like all those different relationships. Even as one is like just our first customer, like I just really enjoy. Everybody that we met over the year, I think, over the years is what it is.
All right, Nick. Well, thanks a lot for taking some time to share your story in podcast format.
Anything to get me off the make line.
Yeah, I got to get you back out there. They're probably drowning without you out there. So for everybody out there listening, as we've been talking about throughout the show, if you're in Pittsburgh, you can visit any of the 5 Caliente locations in Bloomfield, Mount Lebanon, Aspinwall, Hampton Township, and now Monroeville. Pick up Nick's book, The Pizza Equation, on Amazon.com. Are there any other places they can grab your book other than Amazon?
It's on Amazon. I have a website, The Pizza Equation, too. It tells you a little bit more about it. And I'm going to plug you for a second, too. If you have, one of the great things that I'm really happy about is that Jason's back on the podcast. I thought that, your podcasts are awesome.
Thanks,
and
man.
I'm glad you're back on doing it. It seems like podcasts in general are really picking up a lot of steam.
Yeah, and I know I've talked about this on the show, but my hiatus was on purpose because I was trying to get better at this.
Yeah.
I know that when I go back and I listen to the old shows, which are no longer active on the internet, but I have recordings of, it's douche chills. There was some bad moments that I just felt like, and we're all going to have them, but I felt like there was a lot more I could be offering from a production standpoint for everybody out there listening, and also from hosting and sitting with you and all the other guests that come on the show. So thanks for that plug. I appreciate it. And it's good to be back. I missed the hell out of it. But I knew
you do a good job.
Thank you. I knew when I came back I wanted to do it better. So hopefully everybody out there's listening. If you feel that way, rate and review the show on iTunes. I'm gonna put my own shameless plug out there. Rate and review on iTunes and help more beer enthusiasts find the Breaking Brews podcast. Once again, Nick, thanks a lot. I will probably have some coverage about what happened in Vegas. When you hear this show, Vegas will have already happened. So hopefully you checked out Caliente. If there was more World Championship pizza coming back to Pittsburgh, you should be able to hopefully grab it at one of the Caliente locations during some special events upcoming. Until then, again, Nick, thanks a lot. All right, boys and girls, that was Session 7 of the Breaking Brews podcast. I'd like to once again thank Nick Bogacz, the owner of Caliente Pizza and Draft House, for joining me on the show. And once again, congratulations to him, his wife Angie, and the entire crew over at Caliente for all of their success. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, check out any of their 5 locations: Bloomfield, Hampton Township, Mount Lebanon, Aspinwall, and their newest location in Monroeville. And if you're visiting Pittsburgh, it is within your best interest to go check these guys out, as I'm sure you gathered from listening to today's session. All right, as we get ready to wind down Session 7, as I promised at the top of the show, it is time to announce the winner of our $100 Visa gift card giveaway. And one lucky listener is going to be going home with $100 to spend on beer. All right, let me see here. I can drop in some... There we go. Drum roll. Here we go. So, let's do this. And the winner is Chris Staub. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Staub is one of the premier homebrewers here in Pittsburgh. I had the privilege of working with Chris back in October of 2018, planning an off-flavor course that we held at Spoonwood Brewing, which went over very well. Congratulations to Chris. You are going home with a $100 Visa gift card and the home version of the Breaking Brews podcast. Congratulations, my friend. For all of you guys listening out there, I'm going to try to do some more contests and giveaways in the future, so be sure to tune into each and every episode of the Breaking Brews podcast. Even if you didn't win, if you're enjoying the show, jump over to iTunes and drop a review, drop a rating. Let me know how I'm doing and help the Breaking Brews podcast reach the ears of more thirsty beer enthusiasts and beer professionals just like you. If you're on Stitcher, if you're on Spotify, if you're on Google Play Music, you can grab the podcast there. And you can connect the show notes and every episode on breakingbrews.com/podcast. All right, for session 8 of the Breaking Brews podcast, we are going to be joined by the crew from Levity Brewing Company in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and we're going to be talking about cultivating a complete customer experience at your tap room. Levity Brewing does beer, they do food, they do live music, they do events. They really have a great atmosphere in their tap room, and we are going to tap into their knowledge, and you are going to learn exactly how they do this every single day. And you're going to pick up some tips and pointers that you can incorporate into your own practices, no matter where you are listening to this podcast. Session 7 is officially in the history books. My name is Jason Cercone. We'll be back next week with the crew from Levity Brewing for Session 8. Until then, this has been the Word of the Port.